the definitions of the trig functions. We figured out if you're given an ordered pair, we can, diagram that rotation and we can find the values of the 6 trig functions that go with it based on definitions. But there's going to come a point where you're going to have angles that are going to be really, really important. Those are the quadrantals plus the 30, 45, and 60, just like from geometry. But the first thing we want to do is familiarize you with the quadrantals, because there's no reason to have to go out there and draw a diagram forever, okay? So we want a quick and easy way that we can find any of the 6 trig functions for any of the quadrantals. And as we talked about before, notice that the quadrantals, they all consist of zeros, ones, negative ones, and undefineds. Those are the only answers you can get for a trig function of a quadrantal. So here I have listed all of the quadrantals between 0 and 360. 0 degrees is the same as 360 degrees. So if you know one, you know the other. Make sense? Okay. Then there's 90, then there's 180, and then there's 270. And one method of teaching this is teachers will just say memorize it. That has never worked for me. I don't memorize well from tables. It just doesn't, it never clicks, I could flashcard it probably and maybe I could get it eventually, but there's just too many zeros and ones and negative. It's just too much for me, So I'm gonna start you off, unlike probably most teachers don't do this, I'm gonna start the unit circle today. Because to me, if you start the unit circle on the second day, you stand a better chance of memorizing it over in chapter 3, which is when your book starts it. So I'm going to start you off with 4 points on the unit circle today. And if you don't have any clue what the unit circle is, that's what I'm going to teach you on the next slide. So if you would like a moment, we can pause and let you write this down, but I think you would probably, I don't think you're going to use it, but it is in your book. So do you guys want a moment to do that, or you just want to keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay, so if you like to memorize, this is your table. Memorize it, okay? But if you don't, I'm going to show you an alternate method. Later on in chapter 3, we'll come upon like a total of, let me count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 3 in every quadrant. So that's 12, 16 ordered pairs that you need to memorize. But they're not bad, okay? So we're gonna start with those today. We're gonna start with the first 4. And what we do is you draw a big diagram. And I'm going to kind of come over so that I have some room. I'll do it over here. You draw a diagram of the XY axis system, okay? And you label it with 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and then 360 shares the 0 mark. And on that XY axis, you put ordered pairs on each axis, so on the 4 ends of the axis, and you name those ordered pairs with zeros and ones, okay? That's the trick here. So we're going to let this be the point, what? Is it 0, 1, or is it 1, 0? It's 1, 0. So be careful. Make sure you get it right. You label that with 1, 0, because you go over 1, up none. Up here, that's going to be the point 0, 1. Over here, what would I let that point be? Negative 1. So you have to adjust it where the 0 is and whether the 1 is positive or negative. So this is the point negative 1, 0. And then you let this point be 0, negative 1. This is the beginning of what we call the unit circle. Okay? In each of these cases, what is the R value of each one of those? Remember, R is the distance from the origin to the point. How far is this? How far is this? How far is this? How far is this? That's why it's called the unit circle, because every point on it is exactly 1 unit from the origin. So understand that. The R value for each one of those points is what? 1. That's the key. The R value here is 1 for every single one of them. What's this called? The unit circle. Why is it called that?
They're all the same distance.
Because every one of those points is exactly 1 unit from the center, from the origin. That makes your R value 1. That makes it quick and easy to find anything. And guys, look, this is X, this is Y. This is X, this is Y. This is X, this is Y, this is X, this is Y. For each of those 5 angles, 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. This is R. You can do any trig function as long as you know the definition based on that diagram of any of those 5 points. Now here's the problem. There's only 16 points on the unit circle. We're only going to learn 4 today. Later on we'll learn 3 more in each quadrant. Well, actually, I guess it's technically 17 angles, but only 16 points because 0 and 360 get used twice. Okay? Yes? All right. So you have to know the definitions or nothing's going to work. So I'm just going to randomly pick one and you're going to tell me. I would like you to find the sine value of 270 degrees. So the sine of 270 degrees. So what you do, and every time I have to deal with an angle that's on the unit circle, I will come over here, okay, and I will jot a quick unit circle down. All right, so if I'm at 270 degrees, that's this ordered pair right here. Right? Okay, what's the definition of sine? Y over R. What's the Y value of that ordered pair?
-1.
What's the R value? What's that equal? -1. Okay, let's do another. Let's do the tangent of 90 degrees. The tangent of 90 degrees is y over x. That's the tangent of anything, right? Y over x. So in this case, we're talking about this ordered pair. So you just go to your diagram and you find it, and then you look at it. Tangent is y over x, which is 1 over 0, which is, do y'all understand what's happening here? Yes? That's how the unit circle works. It's quick, it's easy. You jot the ordered pairs down and you can find any of the 6 trig functions as long as you know the definition of them. Let's find the cosecant of 360 degrees. Cosecant of 360 degrees is, what's the cosecant defined as, guys? It's the reciprocal of cosecant. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, correct? And sine is y over r. So cosecant is r over y. So r over y. All right, which is 1 over, let's find 360. Ooh, 1 over 0. So it is also undefined. Make sense? Okay. So if you don't know the definitions, you're not getting anywhere. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the cosine of 0. The cosine of 0 is x over r, correct? Yes, x over r, which we know r is 1 because that's on the unit circle. For any angle on the unit circle, the r value is 1. You don't even have to think about it. If it's on the unit circle and we have told you these are, then it's 1. Not every angle is on the unit circle. Just there's 17 of them on the unit circle, okay? But if it's one of those 17, then you know the r value is 1. If it's not one of those 17, you have to go draw a diagram and do the whole x, y, r thing that we talked about and solve for it. But if it's on the unit circle, you know the r value is 1. So, what's the x value? Also 1. It's right here. So the cosine of 0 degrees is 1. What is the cosine of 180 degrees? That's this ordered pair over here.
-1.
So what is it? It's -1 because it's x over r, which is -1 over 1. This will take some time. The more you draw that little diagram and the more you do it, and the more you remember the r value is 1, it gets faster and faster. And it gets so fast you can do it sometimes without drawing the diagram. You can think in your head, oh, that's the point 0, 1. I know that the first one is x, and you can figure it out like that. So it's not a big deal. So, and I'm going to say this, it may confuse you, it may not sink in right now unless you've had trig before, but listen to this. Because the r value is 1, and cosine is x over r, then this is always going to be, the x value is the same as your cosine value for the unit circle, because you're just stacking it over 1. So the cosine of 0 is 1, because it's 1 over 1. The cosine of 90 is 0, because it's 0 over 1. The cosine of 180 is -1. The cosine of 270 is 0. And the same is true for the y values. Because the sine of an angle is y over r, then the second coordinate here is your sine value. That's what's nice. You can find sine and cosine without even thinking about the definitions too much, because you know they're stacked over 1. So like you look here and you say, okay, this is sine because that's y over r. this is sine because it's y over r. This is sine, and this is sine. So I hope that made a little bit of sense to you. It'll get better like through time. I'm actually going to skip the last 2 slides of this because it talks about how to use a calculator, and we're actually going to do an entire section on calculator use later. So we're not going to go there right now. But the reason it brings up calculators is if you want to check your work in a calculator, there's a special mode on the calculator called degree versus radian mode, and you do have to go in and you do have to put it in the proper mode if you're going to check a trig function on a calculator. But we'll talk about that next time.